cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around his neck when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the fifth chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fith. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the fifth chapter. That's right, and welcome to the fifth chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fith, and we are ready for episode number 35 as we get ready for 5 fantastic chapters and the start of the new NFL football season.
Yeah, it's right around the corner now, man. It felt like football today. I wish they were kicking it off tonight, but I'm just going to cruise right into Thursday waiting for it.
Yeah, I still miss the preseason. It still doesn't feel like football is about to happen yet since we haven't had preseason football and the NFL highlights or anything like that. The only thing we do know is that coming into this season, Odell Beckham, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns, is going to be, I guess, a number 2 wideout after the
Yeah, everybody's got their weird idiosyncrasies. I know this. I don't miss preseason game number 4. That's for sure.
No, I don't miss preseason game number 4 either. But 1, 2, 3, getting to see at least some action, at least a few snaps from the starters, some snaps from the rookies, things like that. But all we have to rely upon now is reports from the fake and dishonest media.
Well, hey, Chapman, you can sit around and crap on the preseason all you want, but we'll have some real football come this Sunday.
I'm not crapping it. I'm missing it. But
that's my OBJ joke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, if you haven't heard about that, then perhaps you should Google it. We're not going to talk about that anymore. This is a family show.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Definitely want to thank everyone who is watching via YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch, and also those who are listening to the podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate in each show by sending in your feedback via Facebook Live, Twitch, and YouTube. Dennis will be reading your feedback throughout the show. And now let's take a look at today's book. As you can see in the second chapter, J.I. Block M. Harbaugh protests at the Big House with Michigan parents about starting the Big Ten season. In the third chapter, Big Gretch, the governor of Michigan, is mandating that all high school athletes have to wear a mask if they want to play sports this fall. In the fourth chapter, Joe Jimenez versus Miguel Sano. We know who won the battle on the field this weekend, but we'll take you into the war of words between these two. And then in the fifth chapter, it's game time. Dennis has some trivia for me. I believe I was 0 for 3 last time. Hopefully I'll do better. Also, as you can see right there in that lower left-hand corner, that is not a typo. It usually says Tuesdays at 8:30 and Thursdays at 8:30. Beginning this Thursday, and from here on out, the fifth chapter will be airing Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. So make sure that you set your clocks, set your alarms, whatever, to 7:30 p.m. That's when you can catch the fifth chapter if you want to see it live. Obviously, you can watch it whenever you want after the airing of the show ends. But if you want to see the fifth chapter live, beginning this Thursday, it will be on at 7:30 p.m.
Great decision by us by moving it to 7:30, I can tell you that.
Yeah. We didn't have to worry about the bosses. We decided on our own to start the show at 7:30. So make sure you watch, once again, 7:30 this Thursday, next Tuesday, next Thursday, and so on and so forth. Dennis, let's start off with the first chapter. And like I said, whether we have preseason games to amp me up or not, the football season starts this Thursday. We're 5 days away from the first same old Lions Sunday of the season. And we have a lot of Lions news that broke since our last show on Thursday. Over the weekend, the Washington football team, or I guess Washington FT, cut running back Adrian Peterson. And the Lions signed him even though Peterson doesn't have any experience playing for the Patriots. Last year, he ran for almost 900 yards and had 4.3 yards per carry. He's listed as the number 2 running back on the depth chart behind only Kerryon Johnson. As for Matt Stafford, the starting quarterback for the Detroit Lions, here's what Peter Schrager of the NFL Network said about Stafford last month when he was discussing potential dark horse MVP candidates.
My dark horse might be the same answer I've had for 10 years now. I'm going to go right down the road that I've always gone. Can I get Matt Stafford some preseason love? Some Peter Schrager, August, Matt Stafford
Peter.
hype.
It must be August.
I've been born to do it. This is why I work on this network, is because I've got one really favorite thing to do, and it's talk about how good Stafford's going to be this season on August 11th. No, in all honesty, here's August, but here's Stafford, who last year started the season great. They tied a game to Arizona. They were winning big. They lost a couple weird ones to the Chiefs. But look at Stafford's first 8 games before he suffered the injury last year. And he was first in the league in a lot of different statistics. To a huge MVP talk, probably not at that point. Victories for the Detroit Lions, and suddenly you're talking about a guy who has taken a team that is in desperate need of some wins and desperate need of some positive attention, threw him on his back and got there. There's so many reasons Stafford can win the MVP. He just has to win some games. And I think the Detroit Lions are a lot better this year than they were a year ago.
So there you go, Peter Schrager acting like a typical Lion slappy. Now you're probably wondering, well, why in the world are Chapman and Fithian talking about this story that broke about a month ago? Because as you heard, he said that that little exchange took place on August 11th. The reason we're talking about it today is because Nate Burleson, who's also on that show, said on the Good Morning Football show, I believe it was a couple of days ago, that Stafford texted him and said, quote, "Tell Peter, forget the dark horse stuff. I'm going for the MVP." Now, it's no surprise when the fake news media at Allen Park asked Matt Stafford about that text that he didn't want to get into it or talk about it at all. But Dennis, what do you think about the Lions adding a new running back in Adrian Peterson to their roster, and about Stafford saying he's going for the MVP, forget that dark horse stuff?
I like outwardly cocky Stafford. For 12 years, it's been kind of admirable that he's just been like, I don't know, we're just going to keep that all, and we're just going to come out and play on Sundays. It's kind of been the same old with Stafford, which, again, is admirable. Keep it all in the locker room. Don't really say anything. Be really buttoned up. But now coming out like, I'm going to win the MVP. I wish only regret is when the media came in there and asked him, he said, "You saw the text? I laid my claim. Now I got to go out there and back it up." I was ready for a little bit more of that, but I'll meet him halfway. At least this is a little bit different from Stafford, and I like it. As far as AP, man, this is more about if there were fans in the stands, my first reaction would have been, this is just the Fords looking to sell a couple more tickets. That's usually my knee-jerk reaction when it comes down to the Fords. But, without them having Bo Scarborough, this really speaks to just what the running back room looks like right now, and their trust overall in Kerryon Johnson to be able to carry the mail. Bo Scarborough's out. They had to put him on the injured list. We know DeAndre Swift. We don't know what his status is, but it looks like he's not going to be ready to go too much for
some sort of leg injury.
Yeah, he's been on the sideline there, so it comes down to Kerryon, who they don't trust as a 3-down back, so they need somebody in short yardage situations. They need another back, and they're able to scoop up Adrian Peterson. Of all time. I don't think he's going to – it'll be bad news if he's the best running back for the Detroit Lions, considering they've spent second-round picks the last couple of years on running backs to be their top guys, and they've invested so much in their RBs. But, I like it. It's going to bring some excitement into the first game here, but I'm not expecting the thing is, you don't expect Adrian Peterson to look like the Peterson that played for the Vikings. Expect Peterson to look like a guy who – is playing his last year. But we have said that like the last 3 years with Adrian Peterson. So, it's nice to have a big-time name back there. But I sure hope he isn't the leading running back for the Lions, because I think that'll spell bad news for him.
Yeah, with Stafford, I have no problem with what he said. I like that. Like you, I wish he would have said that to the media as well, but he's just not going to say that. We've heard for years that Stafford is different behind closed doors and he is more fiery behind closed doors. And then when he gets in front of the media, he just completely changes and says, yeah, well, we wish would have won the game. And the interception was disappointing. And yeah, we'll go back into it next time. It almost looks like he falls asleep when he sees the media. Like he downs a big gallon of NyQuil before he meets with them. But when he talks to his teammates behind closed doors, everyone says that he's a leader. So this would be another example of that. When he's behind closed doors, when he's texting one of his friends, his old teammate, he's saying, man, he's calling me a dark horse MVP candidate. I'm going to win the MVP. Forget Lamar Jackson. Forget Patrick Mahomes. Forget all those guys. I'm going to win it. And then sips on that NyQuil with a little bit of Lions Kool-Aid mixed in there, and all of a sudden he's ho-hum boring Matt Stafford again. But if that's what he's like behind closed doors, saying I want to win the MVP, that's a good attitude to have, because every NFL player should have that, particularly a guy who's been an underachiever and a guy who has been the highest paid player in the NFL. I've always said, and I know a lot of Lions slappies disagree with this, but I've always said, if you're going to be making the most money in the NFL or close to it, then you have to perform like that. You shouldn't just be making the most money in the NFL because, well, it's your time to sign a contract extension. It's time for him to live up to those expectations, and that means to be, at the very least, a serious MVP contender, and not just for a couple of weeks until you get hurt or a couple of weeks until you collapse. He needs to try and win the MVP, and at the very least, make the Pro Bowl, and not as like the sixth alternate and back your way in. So I like that attitude. I don't think he's going to do it, but I think that it's the positive attitude, and it's the attitude that all 52 of his teammates should have. They should all want the MVP. And as far as Peterson, this is a big deal in name only. The Lions signed a future Hall of Famer, but Lions fans should really just hope he stays healthy and is an average running back like he has been the last 2 years with Washington. The 5 years before his 2-year stint in Washington, he played a total of 30 games. That's an average of 6 games per year. He's almost 35 and a half years old. Washington was one of the worst teams in the NFL coming into this year. Some say they'd be the worst or second or third worst. And after training camp, their general manager said, basically, yeah, you're not good enough to be on the Washington football team. And they got rid of him. I mean, that's like at the end of training camp, the Knicks GM saying, sorry, you're not good enough to be a New York Knick. Or you're not good enough to be a Pittsburgh Pirate. So I don't think anyone should expect him to come in here and get 1,200 yards for the Lions on the ground. I think that it shows, like you were mentioning, Dennis, how troubling the running back room is for the Lions. They keep on spending these draft picks, second-round picks on running backs, and what do we have? We have a situation where DeAndre Swift, who I was hoping would be the number one running back, is actually fourth on the depth chart. And he's behind Ty Johnson, who nobody talks about, who's number 3. He's behind Adrian Peterson, who's an old injury-prone average running back at number 2. And then they got another injury-prone running back at Kerryon Johnson at number 1. You know, based on all of this, the running back room looks bad. And I wouldn't be surprised if DeAndre Swift doesn't play in the first game. What's the point of having him play if he's going to be the number 4 running back? Typically, you don't have 4 running backs play in an NFL game. But I think this looks bad for the Lions and that running back position.
Yeah, I do too. I hope it's Kerryon Johnson season starting on Sunday against the Bears, but they had a top 10 defense. The defense is legit over there. But, yeah, I think you're right about Swift. This is one of those things where if Swift was full of go and they felt really good about him, maybe they would have brought Adrian Peterson, but you wouldn't have seen too many carries at all. And I would expect him to get the second most carries on Sunday against the Bears, but I think it should be like a 70-30 split between Kerryon Johnson and Adrian Peterson, just in short yardage situations.
Well, I would assume that if DeAndre Swift was healthy, they wouldn't bring in Adrian Peterson at all, because why would you want to take carries away from your 2, at the moment, healthy running backs that you drafted in the second round of the last 3 years, Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift? Obviously, they have some they like Ty Johnson as well, so why would you want to bring in a guy like Adrian Peterson to take away reps from your 2 young running backs?
Well, none of those guys have the ability to carry the mail tough in between the tackles and really get those short yardage tough yards that you need, like we saw with LeGarrette Blount a couple years ago. That's why they signed him. That didn't work out. That's why they had Bo Scarborough, somebody that could go in there. Even Zach Zenner, filled that role. You do need a short yardage back, a bigger guy. Peterson does know how to get that 1 yard. Like I said, I think he's just going to be in there. You're going to see him 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 from the goal line back. I don't think it's going to be bad news if they're featuring him like and here comes Adrian Peterson for a little switch in gears here. They're like, that's not going to be good news. So I think you only see a smattering of carries here.
Yeah, I also think this looks bad for Bob Quinn because this is a guy who's had the control of the team for 5 years as the general manager. He's had one of the worst running back groups in the NFL throughout that entire time because the Lions have had one of the worst running back groups for 2 decades. And what does he do this offseason? He drafts 2 running backs. He cuts one of the running backs before the season starts. He signs an injury-prone senior citizen to be the backup running back. And then the 2nd-round pick is going into the season as the 4th-string running back. So all that attention to the running back position, and you drafted a guy who you don't even want, who gets picked up right away by another team. So maybe he screwed that up. And then your 2nd-round pick is your 4th-round pick, is your 4th-string running back. Is it likely because of injury? Perhaps, but because we don't have the preseason games that you don't miss, we don't know. We don't know how any of these guys are doing right now.
Well, let's see. It's good to see Lonnie on here, Tim, Jim Clark from Brightmoor, the General's on here, and let's look on YouTube. I've got some feedback coming in. Greg saying, honestly, I think AP could start game 1. Carry-on and Swift might not be playing a lot. Ty Johnson, Scarborough's on the injured reserve bench, which I disagree. Bo is better. I just want a running game. He's saying that's all I ask. And Raj saying sign AP and not being able to maintain Jason Huntley was a typical Lions move. Is that Sideshow Raj, or is that a text from Chap? And then Greg says, agree, Sideshow. That's exactly, and gives them the thumbs up. So they're agreeing with you. Look, it's fine to get excited about Adrian Peterson having one of the greatest running backs of all time, but it feels like, how Emmitt Smith played for the Cardinals, or you had Tony Dorsett playing for the Broncos, or you had Chris Spielman playing for the Bills. This feels like in 10 years when people will talk about Jerry Rice with the Seahawks or the Raiders, they'll say, yeah, remember Adrian Peterson after he gets his boss? Remember he spent those 3 games with the Lions in his life?
3 games. Yeah, 3 games before he's out for the season once again. The other thing that stood out for me about the depth chart that was released, in addition to DeAndre Swift being 4th, was Jeff Okudah. He was the 3rd overall pick in the draft, and he was not listed as one of the 2 starting cornerbacks. It was Desmond Trufant and Justin Coleman. Were you surprised at that, Dennis?
Hey, look, when you have to deal with Mitch Trubisky back there, you don't want to be thrown in baptism by fire, man. You better let some of the – yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised by that. This one thing, man, this is a secondary. You could say whatever you want about Big Play Slay, but he was ready to go and take that number 1 receiver, and he was ready to follow him around, and he would battle all game long with him, and you felt pretty good. Like, you might not have thought Slay was a top 5 corner, maybe even not a top 10, but he certainly was one of the top half, top 16 corners. I'd say he was around a top 10 corner for the Lions. And what you have right now, Trufant, I mean, I can't tell you that he's a top half corner and a shutdown guy. And, you're starting to get down to your boy, Oyuwariye, and you're depending on him or whoever else you said there. This sounds like
Justin Coleman.
Yeah, Justin Coleman. He's a slot guy. You put him out at corner out on the boundary, you're in trouble. We saw that. The statistics back that up. You don't want to see that. So, they're lucky they're taking on the Bears. I like their safeties, but the corners right now, this is a dicey situation. Plus, remember, man, this defense, their inability to get any pass rush, and Trubisky, as much as I make fun of him and everything else,
he lit up the Lions.
Well, he would be tracking towards the Hall of Fame if he just played the Lions.
Yeah, last year he had 6 touchdowns and 1 interception against the Lions in 2 games. Look, one thing I think is intriguing. I was reading a Detroit Free Press article about the depth chart, and I believe it was Carlos Monarez who wrote the article, and he mentioned that perhaps the Lions were just trying to get sneaky about Jeff Okudah because, as you mentioned, Justin Coleman is a slot receiver or a slot cornerback, and you're not going to most likely start him on the outside. And so Okudah probably would be starting. And the other thing is that, this is not the 1980s and 1990s when you're running 2 and 3 tight ends out there on a regular basis, and most of the time you're only running with 1 or 2 wide receivers. A lot of the times you're running with 3 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers, in which case Jeff Okudah is basically going to be starting. I would be surprised if he's not getting 80% of the snaps as a cornerback. And as far as Oruwariye, whether he's the number 3 or he's the number 4 cornerback, he's going to be getting plenty of time as well. If after Sunday we find out that Okudah has only played, 20% of the snaps, then it's time to get concerned and say, look, I get that we didn't have OTAs and mini camps and a full training camp, and we didn't have spring or preseason games, but you drafted this dude 3rd overall and you played him less than a quarter of the game. That's a problem. That's same old Lions.
Yeah, I think it is that part that's the uncertainty there. In any other year, we could read a lot more into it. Of course, we would know a lot more because we would see how those personnel groups, even if they were holding guys out for some of those exhibition games. But there is a thought here with rookies, especially on the offensive line, where the Lions will have a rookie right guard that you just can't simulate that going in your regular practice here. So that's a big deal. Plus, they've got a guy coming in learning an entirely different scheme in Vaitai over there. So that right side of the Lions' offensive line is something that you should definitely keep an eye on as you're watching a game. And then we'll all, I'm sure the broadcasters there, the third team that they bring in to do, I'm just kidding, to do the Lions team, they will, they'll be highlighting Jeff Okudah when you're the 3rd overall pick of the draft. As soon as he hits the field, they'll be telling everybody, so we'll know when he's in there.
All right, Dennis, let's turn the page now to the second chapter.
Yeah, free the Big Ten. This is a story that just keeps going on. It's because the Big Ten offices, man, they just keep that door cracked open. They keep the suspense there. They will not shut it. They just keep this heartbeat going about the possibility of a college football season in the Big Ten. There was rumors that there could have been a revote this weekend. That didn't happen, but Michigan was supposed to be playing Washington this weekend, and instead they took to the streets of Ann Arbor and marched down Hoover, and Jim Harbaugh, their head coach, joined them and to protest not being allowed to play football. And who got the message there, chap? What did you think of the protest in Ann Arbor?
Well, before we get to what I have to say, here is what J.I. Block M. Harbaugh had to say when he was interviewed by a member of the media.
Everybody has been, we want to play as soon as we possibly can. And we're ready to play. We'd be ready. We could be ready to play a game in 2 weeks. Just get the pads on and our guys have trained without a pause since June 15th. So that's our position. We're ready to play as soon as we possibly can play.
So, yeah, he's saying in 2 weeks we could play. We want to play as soon as possible. And obviously, what else would you expect a head coach to say about his program? He's not going to say, yeah, we got to start all over. We need another 6 to 8 weeks. But this is, look, it's ridiculous. I mean, I wake up on Saturday to hear J.I. Block M. Harbaugh leading a protest, and he's not protesting about coronavirus or racial injustice or racism or poverty or excess drinking and hazing at fraternity parties or child abuse. Jim Harbaugh and these bored parents are wandering around campus whining about not having football during the middle of a global pandemic in a country that has handled the pandemic worse than any other first world country. I mean, it's stupid. They're acting like a bunch of Buckeyes because let's not forget the Buckeyes were the first to start doing this protesting, and you have that Ohio State defensive back's father He was the guy that led
Sean
the protest. Wade. Yeah, he led the protest at the Big Ten headquarters in front of an empty building, and then they had another protest in Columbus. We all want football. I want football, even though it doesn't seem like it when time after time I get here and get on the show and say, well, we need to deal with the coronavirus first, and let's just not play football no matter what, like they're trying to do in the dumb conferences. And when I say dumb conferences, I'm talking about the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC. They typically have dumber students and dumber people than you have in the Big 10 and the Pac-12, and certainly have dumber people than they have in the Ivy League. And the Ivy League was the league that set the example and was the first to decide that they were going to opt out of having college football and college sports this fall. But look, it needs to be safe and safe for all, and I think it makes sense to be cautious as opposed to just, hey, let's just throw them out there. I don't think that it makes sense to just say, hey, our positive test results are low, because this is it's not just about a couple of people, because you have to think about this. If a player, let's say the Michigan State Spartans go to Iowa, where they're having an outbreak right now, and somebody on the Iowa Hawkeye football team gets coronavirus from the local employee at the Jimmy John's, and then it's an offensive lineman who gives it to a bunch of Michigan State defensive linemen. They bring that back to them, back to Michigan State. A couple of those players test positive, and they don't test positive after a couple of days, and that's after they go infect somebody at a Jimmy John's here in the state of Michigan, and that person could have diabetes and be 65 years old. People have to look at this as not just about, well, are people dying? Are 18 to 22-year-olds going to die? And if they're not going to die, and if their coaches are not going to die, then it's good enough. We have to look at this from a public safety standpoint first and foremost, and I don't think that most people are doing that right now. I think it makes sense to be cautious. I think it makes sense to especially be cautious when you see that these college towns are becoming hotspots across the country with big frat parties and apartment parties and house parties taking place, and folks getting coronavirus afterwards. When we have better numbers with the coronavirus, when we have testing, not just that's going to come eventually to the Pac-12, but instant testing that's here in the Big Ten, then it makes sense to say, all right, let's have college football. But I'm not falling for this fear of missing out. Look what they're about to do in the ACC, Pac-12, and Big 12. Therefore, we must do it too. I think it makes sense to be cautious and not start football right now, and certainly not have a stupid protest about it.
Well, you could say it's stupid, but the one thing Michigan's been practicing since the middle of June, and I thought it was the thing that came out of that, is Harbaugh saying that his team could be ready in 2 weeks, and people are thinking, really? Because usually it takes 30 days in a regular season, so that's, of course, half of that. But when you think about spring ball, that's 15 practices, and they don't hit, and every one of those, it's usually just about 8. Having about 15 practices when they've already been going through walkthroughs and everything, what this does to me, and all those concerns and safety things, those are things that you definitely want to look at. But there's no excuse for the president, Dr. Mark Schlissel, to ghost Jim Harbaugh when he's over there texting him and not get back to him when he calls him or anything. I don't know who's advising him, but, not getting out and addressing the media more. It seems like, lawyers have gotten to him, even, 2 weeks ago. The faculty there was like, hey, we just want online classes, and we don't hear anything from them. In fact, he just throws out little 30-second videos going into Labor Day like, hey, everybody have a great Labor Day. But I think the thing, again, that came out of that was not a revote, or we knew that wasn't happening. But if you think about if it really is going to take these guys 2 weeks, I thought that this weekend would have been a drop-dead date, where it's like, okay, they better start coming up and at least reveal some kind of Thanksgiving plan or some kind of January plan. What this tells me is that they can wait all the way till late September. Here we are on the 8th. I think they could wait all the way to the 26th, because if you look at it, the 26th, if you take 2 weeks off of that, after that, that would be October the 10th. So really, I think we can, since the door is cracked, I think that all the way till the 26th, you're going to have more of the players and the parents and the coaches in the Big Ten continue to beat the drum like, hey, especially when you see the ACC, they're going to play this week.
Yep.
You're going to have Clemson and Notre Dame and Florida State out there. we're going to be able to see all of that data. Michigan had close to 1,000 tests since back in August, and they've got 0 positive tests. Now you have to have the 13 other schools. That's a good point. You're going from, the shores of New Jersey all the way over to Nebraska and Minnesota. So that's a pretty gigantic footprint that you have to deal with. But the rapid testing, there's a lot of things that are constantly changing. That's why it's hard to believe that you don't hear from more of these presidents like this is their baby, especially Schlissel. I mean, this guy, this is what he was trained for. This is everything that he knows. I would be out there. I would be taking every newspaper, radio, TV interview and explaining to people like, hey, this is what I think. This is what I thought yesterday. Here's what I think about the rapid testing. This is what I think about the next 2 weeks. And instead, he's putting this self-imposed gag order, which, is puzzling. It's just confusing to football fans.
It's not puzzling to me. I get that as a doctor, it would make sense for him to come out and speak more because a doctor, especially one that has a background in infectious disease, is going to have some credibility. But not a whole lot has changed from the time that the Big Ten decided that they were going to scrap football or postpone football. And now, I mean, there was the revelation that the Pac-12 is getting themselves some instant tests, but the coronavirus numbers are pretty steady. They've been at about 40,000 new cases per day over the last couple of weeks. The numbers in Michigan and most of the Big Ten have not changed, although they have gone up significantly in the state of Iowa. Everybody knows that it can make you sick and it can make you die. Those numbers have not changed. We still don't have a vaccine. I don't know that a whole lot has changed. Certainly he could get out there and give some press conferences and give some speeches, but I don't know what folks would gain from that, outside of, well, at least he's not hiding.
Yeah, knowledge. Just, you know what? I would be more apt when somebody's out there and explaining things and I can hear it from them and I can see them.
But what's he going to say that's new? Like, a lot of people that think they should play are probably of the belief that, hey, it's just the flu, it's not that big a deal, or, hey, they're doing it down there, we should be able to do it too.
I don't know, Chapman, we come on here 2 times every week saying a lot of the same things, so should we just be like, hey, just check last week's report? Nothing's really changed.
No, this is fresh. This is new. Look, I think that like I said, it makes sense for him to perhaps speak a little bit more, but when the information has not changed, and obviously we're talking about this because something did change, and that was Jim Harbaugh having a protest, but the protest was a response to nothing changing and Harbaugh wanting something to change. But in terms of information coming out, in terms of it being safe to play or not being safe to play, I don't know that anything has changed.
Okay, here's some confusing messages for you. You know what? What they could do, if they're just going to sit there and have this self-imposed gag order, why don't they release one of those press releases like they did a couple weeks ago and say, hey, you know what? Here is our plan. Not just a, hey, wait to see. We'll tell you when something happens.
Well, that is the plan.
Because well, since then we've had the president. You had all kinds of legislators coming out today. You had the AD from Indiana coming out today talking about it can play. You got Jim Harbaugh over the weekend. You got coaches, you got ADs all over the place. You got teams playing every week. They're going through it safety. You got other big-time conferences coming out this week, and they're going to play. So the door is cracked open. If they came out and said, look, we're going to play Thanksgiving weekend, or we have aligned and we're pairing ourselves with the Pac-12, and we will start playing on, December the 1st.
Well,
then people would say, okay, you know what? They've made their decision, and we're gonna concentrate our efforts there. But they're the ones that have left the door cracked open.
Well, that's a desire for the specifics, and I think it's critical to understand that right now they don't have the specifics because they're still waiting for more information. They're still waiting to see what's going on. And if the Big Ten decides to do what you said and say, hey, the week before Thanksgiving we're going to play, then guess what? First of all, some folks are going to say that's too late, but second of all, other folks are going to hold them to it, and then if they get new information that says that they can start earlier, folks are going to be angry. If they get new information that says that they need to postpone it until January or February, people are going to say, but you promised us the week before Thanksgiving we can play, man. So I think it makes sense to just wait until they have a decision, as opposed to saying, all right, we're definitely going to start on this date unless we change our mind again.
Chapman supports vagueness. All right.
They're
have to disagree with
that's
that.
correct. There's no reason to be clear when they could be clear and completely change course a couple days later. Like, for instance, you've criticized the Big Ten and Kevin Warren in particular many times on this show for putting out a schedule and then a few days later deciding to scrap it. They would basically have to do that. If they put out a schedule to start the season the week before Thanksgiving and then things change, they'd have to scrap it, and then Kevin Warren would have to undergo the wrath of Dennis Fithian for a second time.
Well,
nobody wants to deal with that.
Well, Kevin Warren, when he came out with the Jenga 41, it made no sense. I mean, there were alarm bells immediately when you saw it. You're like, wait, they're planning on playing September the 5th? There's no way that's going to happen. And then you're like, well, they put in all these flexibilities and this fluidity with it, so they'll just keep pulling back and they'll just keep pushing it back and kicking it down the road. But then they didn't do that. Then they came up 5 days later, and then you also knew when they started out and they didn't have the 6 Big Ten East games that were scheduled first that thing was fugazi immediately. So they did a horrible job. They had this task force that was all put together, and this task force has been a joke. The only thing they do is undercut Kevin Warren at every turn, calling up Dan Patrick. Yeah, we're going to play October the 10th now. We're getting calls from Nebraska.
And Jim Harbaugh apparently told his team that they could be playing on October the 10th.
Yeah, well, they want to still play with the season when they see other teams doing it. They're getting a lot of mixed messages. Yeah. When all of the state of Michigan gets a reversal with the MHSAA, and it's like, they're postponed until spring. Wait a second, now they're playing. Mm-hmm. Everybody's playing except the Big Ten.
Yeah. All right, do you want to get to some feedback or turn the page to the third chapter?
Well, a lot of feedback still coming in on AP about that he's going to start. So, yeah. People are like you, man. They're just pausing and either crossing their fingers or holding their breath, or they're tired of the Big Ten.
All right, let's turn the page now to the third chapter, and that takes us to what you just mentioned, and that is high school sports. And according to a couple of tweets from earlier today, Michigan high school athletes are going to have to wear more than just jerseys on the field this fall, or if they're not playing on the field, on the tennis courts, whatever. Here's actually a tweet from the athletic director for Chippewa Valley Schools, Dr. Adam K. I don't know how you pronounce that. Attention Chippewa Valley student athletes. The new executive order from the governor requires all athletes to wear a mask during all workouts, practices, and competitions. This is a major change. Please be prepared. And I actually looked up Big Gretch's executive order, and under 7A for organized sports, it says athletes participating in an organized sports while on the field of play are not subject to social distancing, which is good because you don't want social distancing when you're trying to protect the quarterback, but instead must maintain 6 feet of distance from one another to the extent compatible with that organized sport, and wear a facial covering except when swimming, which is important because obviously that would be like waterboarding, and the student athletes would die potentially if they were forced to wear a mask while they were swimming and while they were diving. But Dennis, Big Gretch put out the executive order. If you're a high school athlete and you're playing in one of the 9 fall MHSAA high school sports, you have to wear a mask during practice. And I wouldn't say not during a game like Allen Iverson, but during a game too. So what do you think about this mandate? Is it too much, or is it right on the money?
Well, I don't think that there's any way that people are going to follow this. Like, they might have their mask on, but if they go out there, as soon as you're getting ready to play, you're pulling it down. I mean, we see it in sports already half the time, mask below. You might have it over your mouth, but you're not going to have it over your nose. And look, I've worn a mask for, hours at a time, and it's uncomfortable, and, you can just end up doing it. But I've also haven't gone out there and, started sprinting or lifting weights, or, I don't know. Like, that seems like you're just asking too much. You can ask, but I mean, what are they going to do? Have police on the sideline? Like, you're going to 15 yards?
Yeah, what's the penalty for not having a mask, or having a mask below your nose but covering your mouth?
Face mask. Yeah, face mask is good now, right?
Yeah.
It's just something that's not going to be followed. So, like, they could put that out there. I think trying to come up with some kind of face shield that's involved with the mask seems like that might be able to help more. But I don't think I doubt that they're going to get many people following this rule.
Well, if they don't, then perhaps all the high school athletes will get arrested and thrown into the back of a police car or a bus and thrown into jail or next to a bunch of hardened criminals. I doubt that. But I was first of all, I'm glad that there's an exception for swimming and diving. But also, I saw that there are 9 fall sports, and those are boys cross country, girls cross country, football, girls golf, boys soccer, girls swimming, boys tennis, girls tennis, and girls volleyball. And I was trying to think, well, how would a mask affect each of those sports? I think that it probably wouldn't affect you a lot in tennis or volleyball, although there is some moving that goes on in tennis and volleyball. But there are 4 sports where it would have a major impact. Football, boys soccer, and then both boys and girls cross country. For cross country, if they force these athletes to wear a mask, it's going to be harder to breathe, and I think you're going to see much slower times than you're used to seeing. There's not going to be anybody breaking the state record. And I expect there to be a lot of cheating like you were talking about, where when no one's looking, they just kind of slip that down below their nose so they can breathe in. Exactly, get some oxygen in there. For football, teams, if they're going to be enforcing this, teams that are deep are going to be benefited, and also highly conditioned teams are going to have an edge because there's a lot of exertion. If you're on the line, you're just exploding off the ball and shoving another fat guy in front of you for the entire time. If you're on the outside, then you're sprinting nonstop, on each play, and it's hard to recover after each play. I mean, you see in the NFL, guys go to the sidelines and they put that oxygen mask over their face. So players are going to have to get more rest if they have to have a mask over their face. And so the bench players are going to be more critical in these football games. Soccer is actually the sport where I think you have the biggest issue because you're constantly running and you have limited substitutions. If you're playing, 6-year-old soccer, then obviously the 6-year-olds can go in and out because everybody has to play. But when you're talking about, I know at least in terms of, whatever Lionel Messi plays in La Liga and UEFA and all that other stuff, you get like 2 or 3 substitutions per game. I'm not sure what it is in high school, but if it's similar, you get 2, 3, 4 substitutions per game. Basically, you're supposed to play the entire game. And you can't sub in and out like you do for other sports. And like baseball, once you're out, you're out. Perhaps if they're going to institute a mask mandate, they need to have more substitutions so the players can catch their breath and come back in the game. Because, having a bunch of guys in, halfway through the second half just walking and dogging it down the soccer pitch is going to lead for a trashy version of MHSAA soccer.
Nobody's wearing a mask in cross country. Let's get real about that.
I don't see how that works.
Well, you know what? They don't follow the rules up at the park. I see the local, it's either track or cross country. It's cross country's, I think, in the fall, so that's what I'm guessing it is. And they're out there, but not only are they not wearing masks, they all run in groups, like right in a 6-foot circle all together like that. And then afterwards, they're all sitting around, basically on each other's laps. But you can social distance in cross country, even if you get to a meet. You can just spread them out a little bit. So. You can do it there. You don't have to wear a mask, but
I think they need to get rid of it in cross country, in golf, because you're not close to anybody in golf, and they also need to get rid of it in tennis. It's not contact, and you stand on the exact opposite end of the court from your opponent, unless you're playing doubles, and even in doubles, you're not all that close to your opponent. So hopefully they will look at this before the start of the season and make some changes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not going to work, so I'm not sure why they're doing it. Let's get us to the next chapter, which is chapter 4.
Yeah, let's turn the page to the 4th chapter.
Well, that's me, and we get to a little baseball, which is near and dear to our hearts here. The Tigers, they're able to Do you salvage one game out of 4? I guess that's what they did. They beat the Twins in one game.
1 out of 5.
Oh, 5. Yeah, they had the doubleheader. So Joe Jimenez gave up a bomb to the Twins' Miguel Sano, and Sano was admiring the home run. And then afterwards,
Yeah, we actually have that video, so we can show it to everybody.
Let's get that video.
The runner was going to go to third base. 1 strike. Deep to left field. Stewart back, and that ball's gone in a hurry off the facing of the second deck, and it's 3-2.
He stood there and admired it, but took a little time getting out of the batter's box. He had something to say. Might be igniting a rivalry right there between these two teams. But that was an absolute missile.
Just the 5th home run allowed by Jimenez, and now.
So not only stood there and watched it, but once he got to home plate, it looked like he kind of growled or something.
Yeah. And then they were trash talking after the game. So the question is this good for baseball, Brian Chapman?
Yeah, and here's what Joe Jimenez said after the game about that incident.
To be honest, because it got me by surprise, because I had big respect for him before yesterday, and there's no reason for it, He said something to, I believe it was Reyes, and he said that he did that because I did I pimped some strikeout or something like that to Nelson Cruz back home when I faced him. That was a lie, because I didn't do it personal. I didn't do it like to affect him. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not doing good. I'm not gonna be that guy to pimp a strikeout in a big situation or whatever. To let them know that I did it because of something. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I had a big respect to him, but if he's gonna do that from now on, I'm gonna do my own thing too.
So yeah, saying if he's gonna do that, I'm gonna do my own thing too. That's it's a warning shot, but obviously not a warning. I would think it's not a warning shot that he's gonna throw for his head. Look, when I hear this back and forth between Miguel Sano and Joe Jimenez about, he pimped a home run, and he stood there or he pimped a strikeout, or he watched the home run, and I'm so offended I can't believe that. It just goes back to my long-standing belief that while baseball is my favorite sport, Major League Baseball players are the most sensitive people in all of American pro sports, period. Your team gives up a 400-foot home run, and you're angrier that the hitter flipped his bat, or watched the ball, or talked a little bit of trash when he went around the bases, or didn't go as quickly as you'd like him to go around the bases. You're angrier at that than the fact that he just hit a home run. Or you got clowns like Brian McCann, who wants to curse out players. He was a catcher. Curse out players as they're going around the base, and then block the plate because they flipped the bat or they watched the home run. Meanwhile, he called the pitch that just gave up the home run. And you got hitters who are angry, like Miguel Sano, angrier that the pitcher is shouting or celebrating or beating on his chest, angrier at that than the fact that they just struck out. It doesn't make any sense. I've never thought it makes any sense. Baseball players are too sensitive. In this case, it looks like these two guys are too sensitive. When I played sports way back in the day, I didn't care if somebody was talking trash, and I was more upset about what I did than anything else. So I think that if they want to be offended by this and get sensitive, if they're going to turn it into a situation where when Miguel Sano hits a single, he's going to flip his bat, I'm fine with that because I like the celebrations. I love when Jose Bautista did his thing in the playoffs a couple years ago. If Joe Jimenez wants to pump his fist and shout every time he gets a strikeout, I'm fine with that. I certainly don't want to see a brawl or anything like that. It's just it's amazing to me what gets somebody offended and what shows what brings out the sensitivity in a baseball player. You should be more offended and you should be more hurt by you or your team screwing up than what happens when a team benefits from you screwing up.
Yeah, well, this gets back to and this is what 2020 is. It's the year of the unwritten rules getting exposed. I mean, this is how you're supposed to act when you hit a home run. This is what you're supposed to do when you get a strikeout. You want more personality in the game. That's what the fans want.
Yes.
The thing that is the one part that's the hammer in all this is that the pitcher, has that ball and he can throw at 100 miles an hour. As we saw Aroldis Chapman, throw at the Rays like last week. You don't want to get that, but
No.
we end up seeing that. I would have liked to have sent a message to Joe Jimenez and said, hey, Sano hit it into the second deck. What I would like to say to him and all Tiger fans we know, hey, Miguel, second deck. That's what he should have said. But, I didn't get a chance. He didn't follow me on Twitter. I didn't know right afterwards. I could have sent him that message. But, yeah, just tell Miguel Sano, second deck.
Look, if I was Miguel Sano, like the way he hit that ball, he smoked it. Like before you could blink,
Where'd he hit
it was off the, what's that? He hit it in the second deck, but he hit it off the facing of the second deck. And he drilled it. I mean, it was the same kind of trajectory you would see on an Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton home run. If you're going to hit a ball that hard, I think you have the right to stare at it, particularly if you got some beef with the opposing pitcher. But I've got no problem whatsoever with what Sano did. I think that if you're a Tigers fan, the message should not be second deck to Miguel Sano. It should be, Joe Jimenez, stop serving up all these meatballs. Stop putting the ball up on a tee for opposing hitters, because it's not just Miguel Sano who's teeing up balls like that.
Yeah, well, you and I agree on that. It's back to the unwritten rules. If they really want, that's your boy Rob Bamford, how to improve the game and everything. This is one aspect. I never hear any young fans in a game oh yeah, don't stare at the home run too long. That's in the unwritten rule. Don't flip the bat. Don't be excited after a strikeout if you're a pitcher. Nobody says that. Everybody likes the celebrations and.
When Al Albuquerque got that ground ball back to him during the playoffs, and he kissed it, and then he flipped it to the first baseman. Some old, senior citizens with arthritis and dementia and all that, they were probably offended. Hey, Al Albuquerque, get him off the field. Act like you've been there before. Let me fix my dentures. But I thought it was great. And if you don't want Al Albuquerque kissing the baseball before he flips it over to the first baseman, then do what Miguel Sano did and drill it off the second deck. Hit a base hit, walk, whatever the case may be. I just get sick and tired of these athletes, these baseball players, getting more offended by the actions of a player, actions that don't have anything to do with their performance on the field.
Yeah, they can be babies. They really can.
Yeah, and that's why Brian McCann is one of my least favorite baseball players of all time, because he wore the crown for being offended by folks. It was almost like if somebody hit a home run when he was catcher, he would have his stopwatch out. It's like, if he doesn't get out of the batter's box in 3/4 of a second, then he's pimping a home run. If he doesn't just drop the bat, if he flips it a little bit, then I have to stand and block the plate like he's sliding before they got rid of the sliding into the catcher rule. Like he was the ultimate king, or I guess you could say czar or dictator of the unwritten rules. But they're not written down. If you're not violating a rule, then play better and deal with the consequences. I hope this doesn't turn ugly, and I hope that the next time these two teams face each other, Miguel Sano gets a base hit and then pimps it and flips his bat as he jogs on to first base, and then the next day Joe Jimenez strikes out Miguel Sano and does a cartwheel, just like Aroldis Chapman did a couple years ago when he was with the Reds.
All right, coming up in just a minute or two, I'm going to throw a couple of trivia teasers at Chapman and watch him go 0 for 5. I guess he'll just have to go 0 for 3 and lose his trivia game. But first, we have Major Wager, which if you've tuned in here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and again, the programming reminder that we'll be moving it up here in the fall, the show, to 7:30 starting this Thursday, taking you right up to that big Thursday night football game with the Texans and the Chiefs. But the major wager, you and I are both on the same page, which is dangerous, Chad, because we liked the Nuggets getting all those points against the Clippers. And after game one, we seemed like we were pretty stupid. But game two, we just had the wrong game. And then it looked like game three, they also would have been all right. We just had the wrong game.
Yeah. And we're on the same page today. And what is today's game for the major wager for both of us?
It is the Lakers. It is the Lakers -5 taking on the Houston Rockets with LA up 2-1, or is
no?
It's
1-1.
Tied at 1. Yeah, it's going to be 2-1 after tonight when they blow them out.
Yeah, it better be. And actually, earlier in the day, I saw it at 4.5. Both games were at 4.5 earlier in the day, at least until Giannis got hurt. But yeah, look, this is a game where the Rockets, I think, came back to earth in game two. Russell Westbrook didn't look like he was 100% in game two. Their strategy of just passing the ball around the perimeter until somebody had an open three didn't work at all. And I thought that their interior defense with that small lineup against LeBron and Anthony Davis just didn't seem to work. So I would expect them to perhaps blow them out, but certainly comfortably cover that 4.5-point spread.
Yeah, as long as the Lakers stay in tune. It's like the Lakers get up and then they cruise a little bit and they kind of relax. I know you were calling them lazy.
Yes, the lazy Lakers.
Last game, you were hashtagging them, but I think that they'll see the Heat just won. By the way, they advance to the Eastern Conference Finals and await either the Raptors or Celtics. Yeah, without Giannis.
With or without Giannis.
Yeah, I guess you're right. No Greek freak. So, yeah, the Heat march on. So, yeah, I mean, they just got to put their pedal to the metal, and I'll give up 4.5. I think they'll beat them by double digits.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they win by double digits either. All right, Dennis, now let's turn the page to the 5th chapter, and that takes us to game time.
Ooh. And
as we know, every other week when Dennis is responsible for game time, he's got trivia. I was terrible with the trivia last week. 2 weeks ago, I was 0 for 3. I am going to fare far better today. I know it.
Well, I know you like the NBA, and that's where we're going. It's trivia on the NBA, and I want to know what college these particular players that I mentioned went to. All right?
I think I'm going to win, but it might take me all 5.
All right, we'll start out with PG-13. PG-13, we know he plays for the LA Clippers. Paul George, what college did PG-13 go to?
Oh, man, I know he's from the West Coast. He's from LA, but he didn't go to UCLA or USC. Where did Paul George go?
He's a star.
I know he's a star. Oh, man.
Ooh, curveball on the first one. I thought, it's one of these, like, you either know it or you don't.
Yeah, I don't know this one. I don't know.
Woo!
Okay, let me just give an answer just in case I'm right, because it's like a 1 in 300 chance. I will go with Washington State.
Not a bad guess. You are right. He is from the West Coast. He went to Fresno State.
Fresno State. I got the state part right. 0 for 1. Not a good start. I got to get 3 out of the next 4. Let's go.
All right. Kind of the same team. This is, I'm giving you 2 players. The Morris brothers.
Oh.
Markeith and, who's it?
Marcus.
Marcus. There you go. Marcus and Markeith. Where did the Morris brothers go to college?
Rock Chalk, Jayhawk, KU. They both went to Kansas.
Correct. You're 1 for 2. This takes us to number 3. We're just asking you what college these guys went to. We will get to the chicken wing guy, Lou Williams, the 6th man of the year for the Clippers.
I want to say Magic City Community College, but I know that's not true.
Funny.
Lou Williams, where did he go to college? Because that was a long time ago. Because he wasn't a star. I have no clue. I know it wasn't in the Big Ten. Let me. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Does he have some sort of accent which would indicate East Coast? I don't think he does. I don't think he has a Southern accent. Gosh, he's not smart enough to go to Vanderbilt, I don't think. Let me go with North Carolina State. I know it's wrong, but I gotta guess something.
Yeah, it was kind of a curveball. He didn't go to college. He went from high school.
Gosh.
High school to the pros, but that was the part that you're thinking, yeah, where did Lou Williams go? He didn't. He went to Magic City Chicken Wings.
Yeah. Magic City Community College, junior college.
That was the closest one, actually. So that makes you actually 1 for 3.
Yeah.
So you'll need to get these next 2. Is that what that means?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, both of these are very gettable. Let's go to a guy who just got eliminated from the NBA playoffs. We want to thank the Milwaukee Bucks for participating. And their second guy there, who used to be a Detroit Piston, is named Chris Middleton. Where did Chris Middleton go to college?
Oh, no. I was hoping you were going to ask me about Giannis, which would be easy.
Former Piston, Chris Middleton.
I know.
Spells his name
second round pick.
Khris.
Yeah, that does nothing for me.
That doesn't help you.
Chris Middleton, where did he go to college? He does not have an East Coast accent or a Southern accent. I'm drawing a complete blank with Middleton. I can't phone a friend. Shoot. I will guess. Was he from the Big Ten? No. No, he wasn't from the Big Ten. All right. I will guess. I don't know. Illinois State. I know that's wrong.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. Yeah, I would not have gotten that right.
The fifth one would have been, let's just see how you're done, even though you already lost. Bam Adebayo.
Oh, that was Kentucky.
Correct.
Yeah, dang, you should have given that to me, so I could have been at least 2 for 5 instead of 1 for 4. But yeah, that was bad. That was ugly. Not a good performance by me. I've got to do better. I've got to study these rosters better.
Well, we'll go and see where your hockey knowledge is next week.
Uh-oh.
Just kidding. Well, on Thursday's show, we will be making some predictions in the NFL. We get some overs and unders. We'll have our Lions season prediction. We will do it all on Thursday's Fifth Chapter. And don't forget, we're starting an hour earlier, so we'll be coming at you at 7:30. We'll talk with you this Thursday on the Fifth Chapter.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, but people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all